is factoring in the form ax squared plus bx plus c different than factoring in the form x squared plus bx plus c? So, first one, 4r squared minus 9r plus 5. So we're going to factor this. Note, there's a number other than 1 in front of the r squared. Okay, we have a 4 in front of the r squared. How do we factor those? Now, in your textbook, it gives you a certain kind of method where you look at the 4 and you write all the factors of 4, and then you look at the 5 and you write the factors of 5, and then you just start mixing and matching until you find the one that works and gives you the number in the middle. So it's more of a guess and check kind of process. That's how I learned to do it ages ago. I'm showing you a different method that goes straight to the answer. Okay? So you don't have to do a lot of guessing and checking and a lot of foiling to get there. So this is called the AC method. This is not in your book, so it'll be important to write this stuff down and do all the practice problems so that you have things to go by, because it's not in your book. First step, multiply the coefficients A and C. So the number in front of the r squared, that's A, this is B, this is C. So we're going to multiply A and C. So 4 times 5 gives me 20. Okay, that's the first part. Multiply those two numbers. Now we're going to find the factors of the product, 20. We're going to find the factors. So we're going to multiply 20. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 3 does not work. 4 times 5, and then 5 is already on my list, so those are all the factors of 20. Now we're going to pick the set of numbers that give me -9 in the middle. Which set of numbers give me -9 in the middle? Okay. And what do I have to do with the 4 and the 5 to make them equal? Yeah, they both have to be negative. If I multiply two negatives, that also equals a positive number. Since my middle number is negative, I have to make them negative numbers. Okay. So our third step is to rewrite the middle term. So the first part stays the same, keeping the 4r squared. We're rewriting the -9r. So that's -4r, -5r. And then we have the +5. Now, we are going to factor by grouping. So now I'm going to show you how to do the grouping part. So by grouping, you group the first two parts together and find the greatest common factor. You group the second two parts together and find the greatest common factor. Do not use parentheses there. Underline those two different parts instead. When you put parentheses in there, it's a totally different problem. And I do mark points off for that because now it means something different. Okay? And more often than not, it tends to confuse students later. So no parentheses. We're underlining to group the two parts. Group these two parts together. What do they have in common? Okay, they both have 4s. Anything else in common? They both have r's. Okay, so now, if I take a 4r out of this first part, okay, what's left? I took out the 4, there it is. I took out an r, so I have 1 r left, right? -1, very good. If you've removed everything, you still need to have something there to multiply with. Okay, so it's going to be a 1. Now, the next set, I'm going to tell you a little trick that's going to be very, very important. If there is a minus here in the middle, you have to factor out a negative number. Okay? It's going to be a must in most cases. So what am I going to factor out of those two parts? -5. Okay, we want to make it a -5 because there's the minus there in the middle. So if I take a -5 out of here, what do I have? Okay, if I take a -5 out of here, what do I have? -1. What does this part have in common with this part? They have an r -1 in common. When I take out the r -1, Note, I just wrote it down once because that's what they have in common. They only have one in common. What's left? That is factored. First one, AC method. So you multiply 2 times -7, get your -14. Okay, list all the numbers that you can multiply. 1 times 14, -2 times 7, or 1 times -14, 2 times -7. Since I want a plus 13 here in the middle, I'm going to use the -1 and 14. So split it up into the two parts. So I have the 2h squared first, minus 1h, plus 14h minus 7. So then we group. In the first set, I have an h, 2h minus 1 left. Second set, we have a plus 7, and then a 2h minus 1 left. You think divide. So the 14 divided by 7 gives me the 2h. -7 divided by 7 gives me the -1. Okay, so you're thinking multiply and divide. They both have a 2h minus 1 in common. 2h minus 1. And once you get rid of those, you get rid of this, get rid of this, there's an h plus 7 left. So h plus 7. Okay, so I got what they had in common out of there, and then an h plus 7 left. And that's the solving part. Okay? So remember, first thing for solving is to be sure that you get it equal to 0. Is our equation set equal to 0? Yes, it is. The second thing we're going to do is factor. Now we're starting to add to our list of factoring components. First, greatest common factor. Do I have a greatest common factor between the 2, 13, and 6? So no greatest common factor between those. The next thing we want to look for is the format. So it's either of this form, x squared plus bx plus c, or we have a number in front of the x squared plus bx plus c. Okay? So one of them is a little more direct. Okay, this one's a little more direct. You can just look at the c and find the factors. This one, we have to use the AC method. Now, technically, this first one that I showed you last week, you can use the AC method with that, and it works too. So far, that's all we've got. And we're going to get some more later this week. So this has the ax squared format. So we have to use the AC method. So the 2 times the 6 is 12. Yep. And then 1 times 12, that equals 13, but it's negative 13, so I need to make them both negatives. 2x squared minus 12x minus x plus 6 equals 0. Now we do the grouping part. So group the first part. What do they have in common? 2 and? They both have x's. So what's left if I take out the 2x? Minus. Okay. Now we get the second part. What am I going to factor out? A negative. So I take out a -1. There's a negative here in the middle. So we take out a -1. That leaves me with a positive x. What about the inside? Right. Minus 6. Because I took out the -1, so it makes that 6 in the middle minus. What do they have in common? And what's left over? Okay, so that's the factoring piece. Once you get it factored, 0, product, property. Okay, 0 product property, you just separate the two parts. So I get x minus 6 equals 0, and 2x minus 1 equals 0, and then solve. Okay, so then we solve. So in the first, add 6 to both sides, x equals 6. Add 1, so we get 2x equals 1, divide by 2. So x equals a half. So 1/2 or 6. Questions?